Still with me in studio, Gary Booysen, Director and Portfolio Manager, Rand Swiss. We've got Mohammed Nalla, Nedbank CIB, Lesiba Mothatha, Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, and joining us now, Brigid Taylor, Chairperson at Kaon Capital. Thanks very much. Well, Brigid, let's get your thoughts. Again, we chatted to you last week on the appointment of David van Rooyen, and a new day, new minister.
Exactly. Look, I think it's, as you said earlier, I mean, we're living in a joke. We don't actually know what's going on from one minute to the next, which I have to be honest with you, at this time of the year, when the market is as thin as it is, as illiquid as it is, everyone's going on holiday. And this kind of thing is going on. We're losing R2 on the dollar. We're losing 2% on the exchange rate, on the interest rate. What is going on? So yes, Pravin Gordhan comes in, thank God. Okay, so we've seen the rand recover about another rand on the flip side. And we're probably going to find the market's going to have to open this morning. Europe's going to come in and there's going to be all this reshuffling in terms of, was that a knee jerk? How good is this good news? But the real question is, does this have legs? Is there longevity in this decision?
Well, let's have a look at the market. As Brigid has alluded to, there is the JSE Aussie, and we are tracking slightly higher. Any comments on that before I move off? You're all heaving a sigh of relief that the market is reacting positively right now. Gary?
But again, the market seems that the overall index has been quite benign because you've seen this huge dichotomy between the resource and the rand hedges and the financials, and you're just seeing that reversal today.
Well, exactly. Now let's look at the sectors, because that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So let's get that board up there on the sectors, and that's what you're talking about. Look at that. Banks up 15%, your financials very much stronger. Resources, Gary, that's what you were saying. The reversal in the story, we're down 4%. Lesiba.
It's good to see those banks recovering. But it is admittedly just 10 minutes into the trade, and we'll see if it's going to be sustained throughout the day. Even later when New York comes in, it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is, because I was beginning to be very worried about those banks. But it's a nice outcome.
Nice outcome. Is it sustainable? The big question, and it was sparked by Brigid, an outrage statement at the opening here.
Well, forget sustainability. If you take where we were prior to this all developing, we're still down. So 15% is good on a day, but it's 15% on a much lower base. Banks sold off in excess of 20% over the last two trading sessions. That talks to my comment of there's been some real reputational damage that's been done here. Whether it's sustainable or not, almost over the shorter term means absolutely nothing.
So we can't even get excited about the moves that we're seeing. Thanks for bringing back.
A downer,
yeah, exactly. Well, I just know, I know where to get the context on the downside. Let's have a look at dollar rand. And Brigid, we're in here. We're at 15.16.
Yeah, so we've, that knee-jerk reaction, you can see it. It's going to recover a little bit, but I think, as Mo's just alluded to, we have to see what the market's going to absorb. And I think the big picture that we're seeing here is decisions that are made by people in power have significant impact on all of us. So these kinds of decisions, when we look at the banks, 20%, 30%, we're seeing what's happening in the rand. It's unacceptable. We have to stop this rot, because the problem is that momentum, if you look at the rand on a technical bias, that knee-jerk continues to just drive us into higher bands. We're still on a weakening bias, Brandon, and that's the concern.
Exactly. And we can't just plug the hole with the reappointment of Minister Pravin Gordhan and hope that the last couple of days are going to be obliterated from everybody's memory. We're not going to recover from the process that was followed here.
Not at all. So what needs to happen now is we need to know what we're going to do going forward. So we need to forget what has happened. The other finance minister was there for 4 days. He's gone. We don't talk about him anymore. We move on. And in the moving on, what we need to do is, how are you going to get growth going? We've gotten a...
Well, he is Minister of Cooperation, Governance and Cooperation and Traditional
Affairs. You produce
a
strategic document that side and make it count. In the finance side, we have Gordhan and we need to move on. But how are you going to rid ourselves from this economic dysfunction?
Yeah, but what the question that I have to ask is, I hear what you're saying and you're 100% right. The big issue, though, is the reputation around making a decision like that in the environment that we're in. Yeah. This has not changed. I mean, we have been worrying about growth since the better half of this year. Yeah. And if somebody can make a decision like that has such serious ramification, all that's happening now is we're all living in fear because we don't know where we stand. And how is that okay? It's not okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay, and it calls for more change. And that's where I'm going with the point, to say you need to change broader. You need a broader overhaul. Because where we are now, we actually, students are writing saying they want more money. right? There's this expenditure plans that are sitting without growth coming through. This outcome alone could push us into a mild recession if it's solved by what is happening. But if it really becomes a dire outcome, we could be like Russia, which has contracted 9% in the first half of this year. So that is a problem. So how are we going to get out of this rut? And there are a few things that have to happen. Maybe this has occasioned an opportunity to reform. You've got to privatize state-owned enterprises. You cannot bail them out any longer. 470 billion rands that have been spent needs not to continue. And that needs to be on the table.
So let's ask Mohammed, if you see those moves, will you get a little bit more positive? Would you need to see dramatic action to the extent that Lesiba's just put it on the table, that we cannot bail out state-owned entities any further? That's it. They need to be privatized. Would that restore your confidence?
I think that is part of a much bigger puzzle. I think that, coupled with the reforms we mentioned in labor, in the labor markets and so forth. So there's a whole smorgasbord of structural reforms you can put in place that will make me a lot more positive. But again, going back to Brigid's point in terms of you need some proper change. And again, to provide some context for the viewers, if you look at Brazil, so Brazil last year had a 1 million man march against Dilma Rousseff, who remains in power, haven't put in place structural reforms, have been going through a recession for over 2 years. Their CDS, incidentally, trades still at 150 basis point premium to where we are right now. So we're around 330. I don't know where it's moved this morning. Brazil's at easily around the mid-4s. Their currency has weakened materially, and that hasn't meant an uptick in their economy. So South Africa is not the exception. These kind of scenarios have played out with other emerging markets, and we should learn from that in order to inform what we do going forward. And unfortunately, I don't think we are.
I want to, Brigid, my heart goes out to you because you've got a lot of clients out there that you have to talk to on a daily basis about the movements in the local currency. In fact, you probably all do. What were your thoughts when you saw this reversal of the appointment of David van Rooyen and then obviously the celebration of Pravin Gordhan coming in? But how have you managed to explain that to investors?
Look, I think that we've often said, even together on the show, is that it is about sentiment. Everything in the markets is driven by sentiment, and then it comes around what do you do about that after the decision? What does that mean? And if we look at what's happened now, the scary thing for me is when I'm talking to people about what the decision is that they made, I don't understand it myself. And I feel sorry for the people that names are being dragged through this. I really feel sorry for David van Rooyen because he's been slated to the nth degree. I wouldn't want to be him for all the tea in China. However, the reality of the situation is we cannot have him as finance minister. He doesn't have the experience. He might be the nicest person in the world. He can't do the job. He just doesn't have the experience. And the reality is, as you were saying, we've got state-owned entities. We've got 470 billion rand that needs to be guaranteed, and then there needs to be bailouts in place. It can't continue. So you're right, we have to do it.
When it comes to foreign investors, foreign direct investors that you are fielding calls with, are they giggling this morning?
We are increasingly becoming, I must say, where we come from in South Africa, our inheritance is rich. We come from a situation when in 1994, we had debt levels that are sitting around 49%. They were reduced with prudence to about 30% of GDP. Foreign exchange reserves have been built. In fact, we've done so well in that period, admittedly it was because we had commodity super cycles, etc., that have landed us firmly in the middle range of investment grade. Our inheritance is rich. That which has ensued in the last few years, it's uncategorical to South Africa. That's not who we are. And it needs to change, and we need to sweep it out.
We talk about this change, but we've also got to come to the point that we are in this, and we've made it over and over again, we are in a tough economic environment. This is not going to be easy for anybody to navigate.
No, definitely. And I mean, I was just going to point out, if we look at Pravin Gordhan's track record, I mean, you're 100% right. We've got the debt to GDP, public, or at least public debt to GDP coming down to about 30%. Pravin Gordhan steps in and that drifts back up towards 50%. And again, if we look at the outside circumstances, I mean, we're talking about, subprime crises overseas and, there were a lot of external factors as well. But the fact is, under Trevor Manuel, we had, ratings upgrades, and with the takeover of Pravin Gordhan, you actually had ratings downgrades and you had burgeoning debt. I mean, is Pravin Gordhan, really the guy that's going to shepherd us through this very difficult time?
Rather the devil you know than the one you don't.
I do want to put a correction out there. Apparently, South African Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan was sworn in at 10 o'clock last night. The media is slightly confused, so bear with us. That is the latest fact on the table. And apparently there is a media briefing at 12 o'clock today. That may change, so we'll keep you updated as we get that information flow coming. Minutes left. Let me give it all to you as concluding remarks. Lesiba, we're going to start with you. This is your last comment before you leave your desks and go into the Wild West. That is the South African market and the trading environment. Final thoughts.
Let's learn from the Europeans. When they had their sovereign debt crisis, the markets pushed them to a particular corner and politicians came to the party. Sanity prevails, good decisions were made. We need to do the same here. It's not enough to just plug in the hole with Gordhan. Much more is required because there's much more at stake for this country just to leave it to go to the abyss as we are facing at the moment.
Gary?
Yeah, I think I'm going to continue with the optimistic note. I think, if you look at just the power of social media, the power that the people in South Africa have to change decisions that are made by our number one, that gives me a lot of hope for the future. So I think, looking at it, I mean, market's in a lot of turmoil now. If you've got a longer term view on South Africa, there's still people here that want to work. There's still people here that can work, and this country can still be a success.
Do we have a glass half full there, a glass half empty on Mohammed Nalla? We'll come to you. I don't know whether I should leave. No. Let's go to you first, then we go to Brigid, because you make us want to cry before we leave this place.
You want to end on a positive note. That's unfair. The fact of the matter is, so what I would be saying is, look through the noise. This is noise. The stuff the people who want to work hard in South Africa, me being one of them, I think, we've been bleating about these big issues over the course of the last at least 18 to 24 months. Those issues haven't changed. So what I would like out there is for Minister Gordhan, if the President says he's receptive, he's listened to these representations, and so he's put Minister Gordhan in place, I would like Minister Gordhan to listen to what civil society is actually saying here. And let's start rolling up our sleeves and let's get South Africa onto the next curve. We damn deserve it. And let's get it there. But right now, it's a very steep hill. I've got to end on that negative note because you're still going to Brigid.
Well, I'm not sure whether I've actually made the right move. Brigid could be more negative. She's in shock this morning as she sits down on the desk.
As David said, confusion reigns supreme. However, I would like to say, and this is to everybody, we are South Africa. The people that we put at the top are people we put there. We can take them out. We've got to choose that this is how we want our country run. This is what we want. We need to stand up and say, enough. We care about generations to come. We care about our inheritance. Stop making stupid decisions and stop throwing it down the toilet. Let's get it right and let's turn this thing around. Let's make 2016 an awesome year.
That's if we get a break. I think most of us are going to be regrouping on this desk for a couple of days, potentially the next couple of weeks. So we've been joined by Gary Booysen, Director and Portfolio Manager, Rand Swiss, Mohammed Nalla from Nedbank CIB, Lesiba Mothatha, Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, and Brigid Taylor, Chairperson at Kaon Capital.